You are listening to the Be a Better Being podcast, hosted by the founder of Better Beings, Michelle Zellner. Michelle's experiences have equipped her with knowledge and perspective, and for nearly 3 decades, she has been informing, influencing, and inspiring thousands on their journeys. This show spotlights guests of diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise, but they all align with Michelle's purpose and passion to help you be a better human being. There is something for everyone on their way to a healthier, happier life. Enjoy the show.
Greetings. Thank you for tuning into the Be a Better Being podcast. I'm Michelle Zellner, your host. I am delighted to be joined today by Atousa Raissyan, who has such an incredible story, and her inspiration, her process to help people be better beings, but a different version of that, is really something I am excited to bring to all of you, especially at this time of year. You know, we're headed into the holidays for many of us, and kind of end of year things come up and think about New Year's. And so when I saw her tagline, igniting passion in the heart and stillness in the mind, I thought that would be a really beautiful way to live. So Atousa, thank you for coming on the show. Welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, it is my pleasure. I like to just let my guests give their own background. I think you introduce yourself way better than I do. So tell us a little bit about where you are, where you come from, and how you got to do what you're doing these days.
Yeah, so I go by many titles, and I think I took all those titles of healer, shaman, speaker, author, all of it made into life alchemist, which I think describes the work I do the best. I'm originally from Iran. And I was born there and spent a good amount of my childhood there. And I moved to the US when I was about 11. I was in Iran for most of the time for the war and the regime change and all that good stuff. And I came here and went through an engineering degree and worked as an engineer. So all those things, pathways. But my calling was always for healing modalities, to learn about how can, it's like there's something more to this, all these things I'm experiencing, I didn't call it trauma as a kid, but all these sort of bad experiences, negative experiences, there has to be a reason for it. And sure enough, there is a reason. And that's what I came to learn. But the journey was for me to sort of discover that truth inside myself, and in the process get all these tools and techniques and learn different modalities that now I get to use for my clients to help them. It's not about the mindfulness, it's more of a heartfulness. And that's what my tagline is about, is that how can we bring that stillness in the mind, but allow the heart to be our guide and get us through our day-to-day.
I love that concept and that approach. Let's go back a little bit, well, maybe a long way. I'd imagine as an 11-year-old, leaving your country and everything you know and coming into a completely foreign world. I'd imagine that's pretty disruptive. What is that like? What was that like?
It was disruptive. It was hopeful at the same time because, again, my parents were divorced when I was 2. So there was a lot of other things happening in my life. And then, like I said, the country had gone through a regime change, and that was really traumatic. Then the war started, another layer of fear and anxiety. The process of even coming to the US, we were in Germany for a good amount of time. I think it was like 6 to 8 months we were in Germany before we could come here. So all of that, there was a hopefulness like, oh, we're finally going to have some stability. But at the same time, fearful. I didn't speak any English at all. I was coming to stay with my aunt and her husband that, I really didn't know too well, in a place that, was very different than where I grew up. So at the same time that fear was there, there was hopefulness there as well.
And how did that play out in terms of like your physical, mental, and emotional well-being? Like what What did fear and hope look like as they live inside you at the same time?
I was more connected to fear. I think for most of my life, I jokingly say, I think I was born with PTSD because as a young kid, very, very young kid, I remember how much fear and anxiety I had. So the hope was always for like this, again, this future that there is more to this. I know there's more to this. I'm experiencing all this fear inside of me, but there was also this knowing there that I called hope, that there is a reason, there is a purpose, there is something else. And that drives you, that gets you going in those hard times, difficult times like that, the hope that there is more, the hope that there's a purpose.
Well, we know that hope is such a critical component for resilience. And yet when somebody is maybe not in a good place, having a lot of traumas, difficulties happening at once, it's easy to kind of lose hope, right? And kind of just focus on all the yuck, all the bad, and then decide that, oh, well, this must be just the way it is. Things will just not ever get better. Or if they start to get better, they still live in this anticipation of, the other shoe is going to drop any minute. So as you kind of grew up and navigated a new life here in the States and, worked through a lot of that, I'm curious, what were some of the things that really helped shift you out of maybe fear and into more of that hope as you started to see life change for you?
Great question. And that's something, again, that comes back to that tagline where I found in those times that I was feeling my worst, because when you have that much fear and anxiety and sort of you're looking at everything outside of you at any moment, like you said, the other shoe's going to drop, something bad is going to happen. Either something bad is you feel is happening now or is going to happen. So you're constantly running through these fear scenarios, even for the simplest thing. I jokingly say, even like the smallest task that you think you're getting something out of the cupboard, I would have so many things that would go wrong with that. I would come 10 scenarios that, something's going to break, something's not going to work, something's going to hit my head, all these things. And imagine that small movement now for everything in your life. You go through life that way. So definitely you lose hope. But what always got me back into this sort of, call it hope place, love place, whatever you want, was my heart. Because I could just, even a little bit, like feel that heartbeat, like there was something else in here that would tell me like everything's going to be okay. Trust in me. And the voice wasn't that loud before, but through me allowing that voice to get bigger, for me to starting to notice it more and more and start to that healing journey that I did, later in life, and letting go of all these other baggages and sort of, I call them personas and identities that I had created. This got louder and louder and louder. And that's one of the advice, like when my son was little, I always told him, no matter what, first of all, love yourself more than anything else. He's like, no, I love you, Mom. He's like, no, I want you to love yourself even more than you love me. And the other part of it was that inner knowing. I used to tell him, even if you think I'm going to get mad, follow your heart, because that's ultimately going to get you. I might be afraid for you, so I might not want to let you do something. But if really that feeling is strong in your heart, follow it. And for me, it was more of that knowing, that intuition, it's not a physical heart space, but more of a heart-centered space that would get me to trust and move forward.
Well, I would say that is a very generous way to raise your son, right? To tell him to love himself more than you love me. When I teach, self-care and all the things, that is one of the things that I come back to, is that you have to believe that you are as important as any other human. In fact, you are the most important human in your life. And if you don't love yourself more than you love anyone else, you're not going to take care of yourself, right? So when I talk about self-care, it really starts with self-love, because we generally don't take care of things that we don't love. And sometimes it highlights for us that maybe there is something a little deeper that I'm not really, unpacking well enough to recognize that I am worthy of love. And that means I'm worthy of care. Now, the hard part, of course, in self-care is you have to do it yourself. But I think too often, people end up in that people pleasing or doing everything for everyone because that makes them feel good. And that means they don't have to deal with this one. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately that leads to them not being a healthy, happy, thriving human. So who taught you to love yourself for you to even pass that message on to your son?
I didn't love myself. That's how I knew the importance of it. I grew up, again, because of my environment, because of the divorce that had happened, and it was not a very loving environment that I grew up, especially my dad. I put that in my book. I didn't get that love. And I was always seeking it from someone outside. Somebody here must love me. Somebody here must think I'm special. Something. So I was always wanting the outside to show me that I'm lovable. I am worthy of love. I didn't get those messages. And that's why the fear was like really high, because I'm constantly like, how can I be safe if nobody loves me, if nobody wants me? And that was the process of, then I got to a certain point in my life where, it's like, nope, everything now has to change, because I've lived my life for other people. I've lived it to please others. I've lived it to be safe in this kind of environment. This has to stop and has to change. And that's when I started like, okay, no, I'm putting me first now. And it wasn't, and everybody talks about is that a selfish approach? It wasn't a selfish approach. It was more, I was at a point in my life that if I didn't do that, I would not survive. Nothing would survive. In airplane, they tell you like, put the mask on yourself first, put the life jacket on yourself first. There's a reason for that, because if you can't do it, you cannot help anybody else. And that's exactly what I had to do. It's like, no, okay, now I got to go back in here, clean this. Like the mirror now is not pointing out anymore. The mirror is pointing in. What do I see? Let me love and accept all that I see. And then that started the process. Now I can let it go. Now I can let the fear go. Now I can let the anxiety go.
And was there a particular event in life that kind of was the catalyst for this kind of journey, or was it just a progression that got you there?
No, it was, everything happens in divine time and divine order. And like, I think it was everything built up to that, not a good looking way to look at it, but like a pimple, it has to come up to the surface before it pops, So most of my life, I've been learning all these self-healing tools and all these things I was doing and had started on this journey already. And I was taking my time getting there. But then things bubbled in the form of, I was still working as an engineer. I had gotten married. I was pregnant, and I could see like the structure was falling apart at that point. It got to a point that everything just stopped. Like I had to leave my husband. I filed for divorce because he was, more mentally and verbally, emotionally abusive. And then it got to more physical stuff. And then, my job, the work I had done for all this time, and I was really good at it, I couldn't do it anymore. Like I would sit there in front of a computer and just like cry, because like I physically could not read what was on the screen. I could not formulate those structures, sentences that I needed to type a document, simple document that I had done all this. I graduated college at 19. So I started my engineering career at 19, and I was doing well, but I couldn't do it anymore. I was a single mom, and, my son was about 2 at that point. And I was like, okay, no, pause. I can't, something's got to shift. Something's got to change. Nothing's working right now. And it was a hard pause.
And then what was the first step when you put yourself off of pause? What did that look like? What are some of those tools that you did to heal yourself that I'm sure are what you now help teach other people to do?
The first was, and again, I outlined it in the book. First was like, I'm taking responsibility of my life. I am not saying my life is this way because my ex or soon to be ex is this way. My life is this way because my mom and dad or the circumstances or this and that happened. It's like all of it. I take responsibility for all of it. I'm not pointing fingers out to the world, to God, to universe, to people in my life. It's all me, my domain now. And once I took responsibility and said, no, everything is my domain, that's when I started, that's that mirror that is like, okay, everything points back to me now. And that's where I started the awareness. I want to be aware of how this stuff got created, why it was there, how did I come to this place? And that awareness and taking responsibility got me to see some of those behaviors and patterns. Then you go through the process of forgiveness, acceptance, self-love, gratitude, and then trust. Brings it all together.
And I mean, as somebody who has went on a very similar path, it's so easy and totally natural to be in victim mode, right? This happened to me. And it was kind of the same. It's when I recognized that every single thing that's happened in my life, I've been there. That is the common thread. And I think taking ownership is absolutely the first step in any of this. Now, there are some things that my degree of personal responsibility is really, really, really tiny. Like, that's true. And yet it's still part of it. And there are some things that it's like 99.9% me. And taking ownership of that and recognizing I'm in control of me. I can learn from all of that. It's just about whether it's forgiveness, acceptance, it's letting go of guilt, it's letting go of resentment. It's all of those things that are super hard to do because by nature we're designed to hold on to those things. Mm-hmm. And yet, unless and until you let go of those things, you will not thrive. There is no way you can do it. So it sounds like we've kind of, figured that out in the same way. I know my process wasn't linear and it sure didn't happen overnight. At what point do you feel like you really got to that place where, okay, now this is the way I'm living life and this is how we're doing it. And you start to really see the shift of just the energy and, how your life is turning out.
It was very soon after that big pause or big stop that I did. It was the point where I didn't let my fears run the show anymore. Because like I said, the fear was definitely everything. How can I keep myself safe? How can I keep, my environment safe? And when I stopped doing that, everything turned, which then it opened up that, okay, I had a friend tell me, you've been helping us, or the people around you with healing, and you've done this yourself. Why aren't you doing this for someone else? And I was like, okay. Yeah, the only thing that was stopping me was fear. So yeah, at this point, what do I have to lose? I'm not working, I don't have any other income. I've tried to get another job. I can't get another job. So what's stopping me? Nothing. And then when I started my practice, that's when everything sort of went into super shuttle mode. Everything unfolded so rapidly and then I was able to see quickly, wow, everything in my life, I saw the purpose of it. Like that plan. I'm looking at the past as like, I see now. I see why it had to happen. And that got my trust even more stronger. So I was able to let go more of the fear. And that's when, then you start to bring stillness to the mind, because you're sort of like letting go and you're detaching from outcomes, detaching from desires, even at some point, that everything has its purpose and everything, it's already destined. If none of this I had planned for, and look at that big plan that got me here. So I can trust whatever is going to be tomorrow will follow that same pattern. And that's when, that shift from mind running the show comes, that the heart is running the show and you're trusting every day.
So that sounds like when I say the belief I've adopted is whatever is happening is supposed to be happening. Yeah. I might not have asked for it. I might not like it. I might not understand it. I might not agree with it. But it's happening. So here I go, right? And it's a hard place to get to. And I get it, because we have this desire to think that we control things, right? We have this desire to understand things. There is no rule that says you have to understand something. We like understanding things. That makes us feel better. That was a big block for me for certain things. Like, I don't understand. And because I don't understand, then it's either not true or I can't move forward, because I have to understand first. There's a whole bunch of things I don't understand. I don't understand how an airplane works. And yet I get an airplane every day. Well, not every day. I get an airplane lots of days, right? Yeah. So when I started thinking about all the things I actually don't understand how they work, and I do them anyway because I trust, because they've been doing and going and other people do it, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll do it. When I thought about that in relation to my own process, I thought, well, how is it different? Why not just go and do, right? And be that active participant in your life. Choose to let go, because it is a choice. And then, be part of that process and always active and tuned into what we're doing. What would you say if somebody is in a space right now where they're really blocked, right? They're still in that fear. They're having a hard time letting go of whatever it is. I mean, what are some of the steps to help get them moving in a direction?
For fear, there's a lot of steps, and you got to find out what works for you. There's so many different methods. And that's why I say to people, when they come with my one-on-one sessions, I tailor it toward them, because it's not a one single path for all. Because whatever is working at this time, that's what's going to work right now. And what's working for you may not work for the next person. But the tools are, the building blocks of it are the same still, where we talk about awareness. Be aware of this fear and be willing to sit with it. Because a lot of people, as soon as we've labeled all these emotions that are bad, and because they're bad, immediately when we start to feel them, sort of we go into this escape mode. Oh my God, I gotta run away from this. Something's happening. All the alarm. Tell the alarms, no need for alarms. It's just an emotion. Become aware of it. Sit with it. And don't let your mind create these scenarios and these stories of how things are supposed to be or not supposed to be, or what could go wrong and what's going right. As those mind stories are coming, remind yourself, first of all, these thoughts, who's having these thoughts? Because thought is not a function of brain. Mind does not exist. There's a brain, there's a heart, there's an organ called the mind. And if you take that concept, then you're sort of like, it loses its power a little bit. And then you'll see, oh, these are the thoughts of sort of like my 12-year-old self that was still feeling unloved and undesired and unwanted. That 12-year-old doesn't exist today. This mind doesn't exist. So am I going to let this run my life? Or can I just sit with all of this, sort of, again, bring it in, hug it, and just stay present with it and allow it to dissolve? And it does become challenging. So when it becomes challenging, go for nature walks. Start singing. Doesn't matter. You're not singing for somebody. That sound has energy. Put a nice song, dance. Hug somebody. You pet, loved ones. There isn't anybody out there. Go for a walk. Smile at people that are walking. It's just that you get out of, you're breaking that habit that's telling you this is the way. And you're saying, nope, this is not the way.
I love that strategy. I think, it all goes back to we are rooted in our survival. Mm-hmm. And that inner voice, the fear is just there to protect you, right? That's it. And so my approach is to separate Michelle from her inner voice and just get to know it, understand it. Like I've named her, my inner voice is Mona. That's her name. It used to be. She shifted into Monique many, many years ago, but she used to be Mona because it was all kinds of negative this, negative that, moaning. It's not fair. Woe is me. I didn't deserve that. Why bother? I'm not as good as anybody else. Nobody likes me like they like other people. It was all of that. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, through various situations in life, right? It was the choice to either believe it or to try to understand where does that thought come from and why? There is something about whatever this is that my human is perceiving to be dangerous to Michelle. And so that's all just there to help Michelle survive.
Yeah.
Except that Michelle doesn't want to survive. Michelle wants to thrive. And so it's this approach of getting to know yourself through curiosity and compassion and love and kindness and all the things. And it's hard, right? That's the thing. This is all very, very hard. Like you said, we don't like discomfort. Anytime we have a yucky emotion, well, let's just do something to make that emotion go away. Let's deflect or distract ourselves from it. So maybe we'll eat something delicious. Maybe we'll drink something delicious. Maybe we'll smoke something different. Maybe we will buy some things that make us feel really good. Maybe we'll scroll and watch some stuff and just numb the mind. We could do lots of things these days. Most of those are not helpful, right? And they don't actually address the issue. They just shove it aside for a moment. And then they end up causing more issues, right? Because that's now the go-to. And now I have an issue because I'm always turning to a beverage to deal with it. And now that's turning into some other issues. And, that's why I think when I talk to people about mental health and, some behaviors that you might be exhibiting or maybe you're witnessing in others, they don't happen for no reason, right? They happen because you go back and back and back, and at the root of it, that person's human is perceiving them to be in danger. And so it's just trying to help save them from the danger. That's it. Yeah. But it takes a lot of work and probably some guidance. I'm guessing when you went on this journey, you didn't just sit down and Atousa figured it all out by yourself. Did you have guidance along the way? How did that look?
I did sort of do it by myself.
Okay.
The
Excellent.
guidance though, but I did have guidance, but not in terms of a physical person in my life. The guidance was Rumi. A lot of people now know Rumi. So Rumi's poems was definitely one of my teachers. There are a lot of other people like Alan Watts, Ram Dass, Muji. So their works also sort of following the teachings that they were saying. So there were teachers like that I would read and let their words sort of guide me internally. And we do have this internal guiding system that, that truth that I say, once you align with it in yourself, you see that there isn't, I don't want to call it ego. I don't like the word ego, but these other selves that we've created and they're not real. They're just these characters and stories. And the truth of it is when you let go of all of these characters and realize that that part of you that is your truth, that is really aligned with the life flow and everything. And it's the same thing you see in nature, So that's where I like to guide people. But yeah, my guidance was in terms of those teachers that I read their work, and those words, especially Rumi, is always like whenever I got stuck somewhere, one of his poems will come and it would be the right answer.
So it's like self-directed independent study.
Yes.
And clearly you have that skill within you, right? Not everybody has that skill within them. And I think I have some of that as well. I did a lot of the work on my own. There were a couple of situations where I did have somebody really help me get past a big block. But once I got past it, like I knew what to do and then never really needed that guidance again. And some people need guidance every step of the way. Yeah. And that's the thing, is there is no right or wrong way to do this, right? And I think some people are very resistant to getting guidance because they should be able to figure out on their own. I'm like, I mean, I couldn't figure out algebra on my own. So, and maybe I should have been able to, but I couldn't. So I got guidance.
Yeah. And I didn't have a choice. Honestly, it wasn't that I wasn't looking for guidance. I didn't have it. Anywhere I looked, I couldn't find a person. You get into these environments that, it's either you're going to take medication or it's, you go talk to someone and it's just talking. It's like, we're not addressing anything. This is not working. So it wasn't for, I need to do it by myself. It was like, I didn't have it. And this was the only thing. I kept coming back to these things. This is what's working right now. So let me continue this. And, I went and got my energy healing certification, but that process by itself helped me. Oh, these are tools. So I was gathering these tools, but also I think it was my work. It was happening that way in order for me to create these tools and come up with these tools that I use now. So had I gotten, if I wasn't meant to do this, maybe I would have had a lot more guidance, but something was like, nope, the plan is for you. You got to find this so that you can do this.
Yes, exactly. I love that. Let's talk about your book, a little bit of just the highlights of it, because of course I want everybody to buy it. But when somebody picks that up, what are they going to learn? What are they going to be able to take away from it once they're finished with it?
The book is called Change Yourself, Change the World. It's about transforming your fears and choosing love and seeing magic in the world. What you can expect to get from it, first of all, I go through my story, a lot of how I got here and how I use these tools in my own life. But then also I break it down into each of those chapters is taking responsibility. What does that look like? And I give them examples, awareness, acceptance, love. So each of those are chapters in there that I'm guiding them through. And then at the end, I have practical exercises for them and some other stories from some of my own clients there. And it's gotten really good feedback. Right now it's available on ebook and paperback, and audiobook just came out as well. Everyone that has read it, has used it, and like, we keep going back to it, and it's like we're guided back to it, and it's like, oh, now this works. Or with the audiobook, somehow my voice narrating it, it's helping them in a different way. It's sort of like your voice comes and plays in our head that, it's like, oh, this is what you need to do. So it's gotten good feedback, and I'm really happy that it's helping people.
I love that. That is the magic. That is why you went through all the things you went through. It sounds like a fantastic gift. I don't know. There's a big holiday for a lot of people coming up. Maybe it sounds also like a fantastic gift for somebody to give themselves, as maybe they're thinking about the new year that we're about to have and really ready to make some strides in their own life. And I feel like this would be a great way to get started on that.
I guarantee you're going to find ways to shift. And one of the other main reasons I wanted to do the book, because I do believe in the ripple effect. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in my clients when they shift. everyone around them shift, even people at their work shift. And we don't give that ripple effect enough value. And we're like, oh, the world is the way it is, and we cannot change it. Yes, you can. The only way we're going to change this world to match what you want to experience, you got to first do that change inside. Once that happens, that ripple effect is going to take place and shift the world around you.
Atousa, I knew this would be a perfect conversation because you and I speak like literally the identical language, and I love it. And I love for my listeners to hear it over and over and over from different people in different ways. This is the way. It really is. It's hard work. I'm never going to say it's not. And yet it's hard now or harder later. You all listening, you know that's one of my mottos, as I think I can speak for both of us. We have done that hard work. Guarantee it's an easier life after that. And that is why we do this.
And I have a question for you. If you had to do it all over again, would you just say yes again? If knowing what you know, was it really that hard? It was hard going through it, but now that you're here, it's like, yeah, that was good.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there are certainly things that I would not voluntarily sign up for in my life, but I have always said I am very grateful to myself for choosing to do the hard work when I did it. Sometimes I wish I had done it a little earlier, but you know what? Everything happens when it's supposed to happen. Yeah. Had I tried to do that hard work earlier, I would not have been ready for it.
Yes.
And so it is about choosing to be an active participant in your life. That's really what it comes down to.
Yes. Yes.
And then figuring out what that path looks like. Maybe you don't have the skill within you like Atousa does. And that's why there are so many different people out there who can guide you through. And maybe that thing worked for somebody, and maybe that's not the thing that works for you. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means that's not the path for you. There is a path. It's just up to you if you're going to continue to try and find it or not.
Exactly. Perfect. Yes. Help is always around you all the time. All the time. You just have to be open.
Well, this is fantastic. I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else? We'll put all of your links in the show notes to people that get your books and connect with you. Is there anything that we missed that you feel the audience
No. I'm just grateful for you, for the work you do and, guiding your listeners. And I'm happy to be a part of it. And hopefully if I can help anybody, please reach out and let me know. And if you read the book and you enjoy it, just shoot me a text or an email. Would love to hear from you.
Thank you for saying that. As an author, you never know who's reading, who's listening, who's doing anything. And it's amazing when you get a message from somebody that you have no idea who they are. And it's something that lets you know that what we're doing does matter. So I am going to encourage all of you out there to just reach out to anybody, whether they're an author, a podcaster, a friend, somebody you heard randomly at a conference. If they impacted you in a positive way, tell them. Tell them. It's very easy to find people these days. It's not like you can't find some. So tell them. Again, that's all part of the ripple effect.
Yes.
Right? Because when we get feedback that what we do is making a difference, it motivates us to continue doing what we do. And then we're just going to reach other people. So that is great. Speaking of doing what we do, listeners, mark your calendars. January 11th, virtual vision board workshop, mention your intentions 2025. I know many of you have been coming for years. It's going to be amazing again. So we'll have the links to register for that soon. And I haven't asked Atousa yet, so I'm putting you on the spot. Would love for you to come be a speaker at that. I think you could offer my audience really awesome information. So mark your calendar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, there you go. You already know there's at least one amazing speaker. As you know, if you've been before, there's going to be a whole bunch of them. But this has been great. Thank you so much. And everybody listening, thank you again for your time. Appreciate all of you. And now you know that you get to go and be a better being.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Better Being podcast. We hope that what you heard today inspires you to embrace this journey of life with an open mind, a kind heart, and a willingness to learn and evolve. If you have a show topic idea or would like to be a guest, please visit betterbeings.net and fill out a contact form. Until next time, go and be a better being.